Ho 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 and Merry Christmas, everybody. It's your boys. It's Higgins. This is me. I'm doing a Christmas spirit. I'm a bit of a Scrooge, but I'm gonna turn it on for you bad boys and girls.
It sounded a little naughty the way you said it, which is perfect for this book.
That was kind of the point.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna throw it on. And grab your ho ho hos and your Santa Clauses. We're about to get real dirty in here.
Yeah, sounds like you're trying to do like an intro for the show that we do.
Yeah, I'm literally just grabbing at straws here.
You are grabbing at candy canes. Can I? I've got actually
There
an
you
intro.
go. That sounds really good.
Yeah, but I've got an
you
intro.
have an intro?
Yeah. I mean, it's short and to the point, but I think it sums up a big part of this episode. Do you want me to? You want me to just throw that out there?
Yeah, do what you were gonna do. I was just coming up with something off the fly.
No, that's fine. I liked whatever it is that you were doing. Yeah. So my intro is this drink fucking sucked.
Oh, it's the worst one I've ever
Yeah.
done.
So we'll talk about it, but let's just do the rest of it. All right.
All right.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Comixology Club. It's a show where we get together, we drink together, and more importantly, we read together. The we is me, Snoop Lynch, and the other we is right over there. It's Higgins Sturm.
Hey, that's me. That's Steve over there. And
No,
that's
Reese is right there. Reese is making some Red Bull soup situations over there.
Red Bull soup.
Perfect for this time of year, Higgins. You know why?
Why is that?
Because it's Christmas time and bread and Christmas go
Oh,
together.
ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, puddings and all sorts of other things. Yes. So this is our last episode of the year, and we thought, what better way to round that out than with a dip into the North Pole once again to talk about the sexiest Santa Claus that ever lived.
I know. I hope Grant Morrison never stops making these issues, even though he has very much stopped making these issues.
Well, I don't know. I think it's just a project that they kind of come in and out of as they choose. So, gosh, pets are in full form today. Charlie's got a cone on her head. New Cat's opening cabinets on his own.
Yeah.
Didn't know he could do that. Good job, New Cat. You dickhead. All right. So we are covering Klaus, Book 3, The Life and Times of Santa Claus, written by Grant Morrison and art by Dan Moira. This was published back in December 2020, Higgins.
That's been a while then.
It's been a hot minute.
We both got the very cool looking hardback book with the gold foil on the sides.
You're right. And like that's not news to me. I've gotten the other two in the past that we've covered, but this is a new experience for you, and I feel like you're a fan.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking book. They did a good job.
You gotta appreciate that gold foiling that they do on the edges. Just gilded pages, I think they call that. I do not know, but I love every bit of it. I would have liked if mine came in a bit better condition, but you know, it's tough for Amazon this time of year to get things right.
I know they're trying their best.
Yeah. It wasn't tough to make a great story with this idea though, and I think they really knocked this out of the park. We're no strangers to this sexy Santa Claus story. We've covered the first 2 volumes, which was Klaus, How Santa Claus Began, and then whatever New Adventures of Santa Claus. I think.
New Adventures of Santa Claus.
Yeah, so now we're back in to talk about the life and times of Santa Claus. I just right off rip, I got the same feeling out of this one that I did the original that we covered way back when.
It's just they just kept going, and like the art kind of encapsulates more than like the actual story does.
Yeah.
He does so many colors, man.
Yeah, and it looks like Dan Moira is, and I don't think we've ever really kind of picked up on this, but Dan Moira, it says he illustrates the story, so I'm assuming that means he does both the art and the colors, because I didn't find anything on colors. I didn't really find anything out about this particular volume. We've talked about it before. Grant Morrison's idea when he originally came to this was just to kind of reimagine the tale of Santa Claus, but as a super sexy superhero, and just kind of have some fun with that idea.
Yeah, and like they dive way deeper into it than they have done in the past. Like they have like so many different Santas, and they're like going through our universe even, which is like a new thing almost. Because like the first few we saw Santa becoming himself, and then we also saw in the next one we saw Santa like kind of helping in regular day USA.
Yeah.
But this one has become like a full blown like sci-fi epic kind of.
This volume, kind of going off the other two, is just a natural progression of a really weird and crazy world based in Santa Claus culture and Christmas culture in general. It's always cool to see what Grant Morrison wants to do with all those ideas that we're, if anything, vaguely familiar with. Like the two stories we have in this are Santa Claus and the Crying Snowman, and then The Life and Times of Joe Christmas.
Which isn't really a story at all, but we'll get to that.
I think it's got more that you can get out of it by going back and forth in on that one. That one's definitely the trickier one to talk about.
That one's an art piece, basically.
Yes, yeah, which Higgins, one picture can say many words. As
Thousands.
That sayings go. That's
Apparently.
more than I thought. Yeah.
So there's so many pictures in that one.
There are a lot of pictures. Yeah,
at least like 15 to 20. So
maybe nothing but pictures.
So many words.
Yeah, normally we don't read that many words on one comic book, but they managed to do it here. I think it's always fun to catch glimpses of that bigger Christmas world that's like, oh, I know that story. Some I know better than others. Like with the first one being mostly centered around Santa, I knew a lot of the stuff that they were kind of alluding to and twisting. As we went into the next volume, The New Adventures of Santa Claus, that one kind of lost me a bit in parts, I think, because there wasn't as much there that I was familiar with, but also I just think that they lost focus on why
Santa does why Santa does,
and just like his core of a character that he is. And I think even though he's really only featured in one story in this, it hits those notes really well. I've got a couple points I made notes on that I just thought like, yeah, this is why I love the first volume so much. And then the second one, while very, very different and definitely not my favorite out of the two, it still has a lot to kind of play with, and there's a lot to enjoy as a reader. I think it just, you kind of have to open your mind up differently when tackling that particular story. So we can get into both. I think this is a pretty short one as well, like the last one, so we won't talk about it super long, but yeah.
I had to turn the book sideways to look at the
and that's why you're really mad.
Yeah,
like,
it was hard for me to hold.
How dare they make me turn this book sideways?
But
and you got to hold it up like this, and then people walk by and you're like, "What?"
Like a Playboy magazine.
Yeah, they're giving you dirty looks.
The
and you're
centerfold.
Like, I swear this is just sexy Santa, nothing else. I promise.
The first one though is like big deep into what's it called? Norse mythology even, and they kind of do it. They say some of the words a little weird, like Odin is like Woden and stuff like that, but
okay, so that wasn't your book too. I thought maybe that was a typo, but yeah, I don't really. I read a lot of Norse mythology stuff recently. Like I played the God of War game as well, Ragnarok, when that came out.
I read Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology.
Yes,
and that's
that's his retelling.
Like an Americanized version of Norse mythology. He picked his favorite stories and then put them into a book.
Yeah, he kind of
that was easy to read, basically.
Yeah, almost like a retelling, translating kind of situation. Yeah, that's a great book. And so a lot of the stuff, even on the page, because that is most of what you get out of the Norse mythology stuff is just the setup for this story. So basically, the premise is that Christmas one night, there's a comet going around, and then weird tree aliens start showing up.
Like Loki.
The comet is Loki, yes. Which Loki is the bringer of Ragnarok.
And that's kind bringer of Ragnarok, and they bring that up too. It tells that story, but like in a different way almost. In a Christmas version of the way, yeah.
Yeah, the foundation is still based very much in the tales that you've heard, but they're just working it into this story that they want to tell.
And there's still like Fenrir and the wolf and all that jazz and all that. And then a couple other like the snake of the world and stuff like that.
And I couldn't find a lot on the creation of this particular group of stories. I didn't really come across any interviews with Grant Morrison or Dan Moira. So I'm not sure, maybe other people know, if original Santa Claus, stories and lore, if that might even be based a little bit in Norse mythology as far as its influences and its creation. It may not. It might just be something that Grant Morrison wanted to throw in as part of this particular adventure. Either way, I think it works really well to kind of give this threat, and I think that's what the last one... It fits
in because you gotta put Santa Claus into the full mythology of everything, and I don't believe that Santa Claus fought all these things unless you bring him into oh, he fought these things that someone else fought already. And I think that's what Grant Morrison does pretty good, is like, I don't think of Santa Claus as a like fighter person until you say like, oh, he's got all these people helping him do it too. Steve's here and he's got something to say.
Steve's coming to the microphone to teach us some things, everyone.
I was just saying that Christmas comes from Yule, which is like a Norse or Germanic holiday, and a lot of Christmas traditions come from that, like the tree and Yuletide log even.
Okay, cool. Yeah, see, that's the thing is like I had heard. Thank you, Steve. Steve's leaving. It's great. Want to make a segment? Higgins, if you could sing a song later and we could do like a little...
Steve's here and he's got something to say. That's not...
That's great. I love that. I need that, actually. I'll be able to use that in future segments when he's on episodes. Yes, that's the thing is like I had heard of terms like, you know, the Yule tide, Yule goat, Yule log, whatever. I've heard that before, but I didn't really know anything about it past that. That's not Christmas stuff I'm familiar with.
Yeah, no,
So-
I'm a bit of a Grinch when it comes to Christmas stuff. So like if someone says anything like that, I'm like,
You do hate the spirit of giving
Ugh.
to others. But I mean, you're slowly changing and growing as a person every day, Higgins. Look, you even wrapped your dog up in that cone.
I know.
Yeah.
She's
Not loving it.
doing it all right though.
She's making it work for her, and I appreciate that. That's what makes this story just so great to come into as either just a diehard Christmas fan, because there are people who are like that. They know any and everything about Christmas. But as someone who just kind of has like the surface level understanding, I think that's what this is really good for, is it's telling its own story, but you get familiar elements, and then some elements you're like, what is this? Because that's the fun part about the way he's kind of marvelized this, is every page that you turn to and everything you see just makes you go, what is this, an Easter egg? Is this something that's supposed to be something else? I mean, even in that page where they're talking about Loki and the comet and everything,
Yeah.
and how he's taking that I do know and twisting it into this version of his thing, where the comet is actually a spaceship, because they zoom in on it and you start to see the mechanical
All the
workings
people
around it
and stuff like that.
yes,
Yeah.
and inside that are the bringers of Ragnarok as well. So the main villain in this story is Surtur, but turns out he's maybe not the villain we thought.
That was the other thing, is like the purity of Santa and his naughty and nice list. He's like, I see this guy's nice. He's on my nice list. He
Yeah.
can see the kindness in their eyes.
And that's what I think makes this volume on par with the first one that maybe the second one didn't have for me, is the core idea always comes back to Santa. And why is Santa involved with this story? Why does he matter? Why does it need to be Santa in this and not like, you know, Superman, Batman, like just a regular superhero? And Grant Morrison doesn't lose sight of that in this story, where, and they kind of even allude to it in the very beginning about how it's going to turn out, where he's talking to other Christmas heroes, characters, like Father Frost shows up at one point, the Yuletide Goat, and the Yuletide Goat can apparently tell the future.
Yeah,
And
the Yuletide Goat's tight.
He
We
is
haven't
tight,
talked
yeah.
about him at all. He's my favorite character in the whole thing.
just this weird kind of Jekyll and Hyde
It's
monstrosity.
like a goddamn, like, he looks like the, like, Satan goat, but for good.
And he's ripped and also sexy. Everyone's
Yeah.
sexy in this. We've talked about it in
But
previous
he's also
episodes.
the
yeah.
smartest guy in the whole team.
Yes, so he can apparently tell the future, and so he knows how this is all going to end, and he tells them how to do it, and it's
And they're
it's
all
spoken
like-
in gibberish and riddle.
You're like, but I don't got time to deal with that.
Yeah, but going back and rereading it before we started, they throw so much at you. All these ideas, both from Norse mythology, from Santa Claus lore, and then just the overall story that they're trying to tell. It's so much, but it's done in a way where, as long as you are paying attention, and honestly, it rewards rereading it, you see all of the clues and the groundwork laid out, because the goat can see the future. It basically says like, hey, you're not going to win this with fist, but you know, it has to be done in a different way. And you come to the end of the story where the way that they defeat Surtur is by not defeating him at all.
Yeah, they
Santa
just
can
say
see,
like, oh yeah, just take some sun, dude.
yeah, it's a misunderstanding which led to Ragnarok. So that's kind of an interesting wrinkle in this universe as far as why did Ragnarok
fought
happen.
them from getting the power they needed, and that's why Ragnarok happened.
Surtur and his people show up every 1,500 years because they need energy from the sun to last them another 1,500 years. And the last time they showed up was when the Norse gods were around, and the Norse gods just jumped to conclusions and thought they were there to ruin everything. So they fought them. And now that they're back, they're not coming to talk it out. They're coming to just take what is theirs. And it probably would have happened again, and Ragnarok would have happened again, except this time Santa's around.
And except this time, Michael Keaton becomes a snowman and helps him out doing that.
I don't know if that was intentional to throw in this element.
That's what Huey is, right?
Well, just this
Michael
idea.
Keaton was the guy in the Snowman movie, right?
Yeah, he's Jack Frost. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's who he is.
Yes. But
He has a son. They're getting divorced, and he is a snowman because his son made a snowman with him, and he died.
I think the biggest idea of it is to play off that trope of old holiday movies from when we were kids, where every main character is just a jerk of a sad dad who cheats on his wife and is getting divorced, and his son just wants to spend time with him. I think that's the only reason that this character became who he is. And it's just this fun thing with Christmas lore of past where you're like, I recognize that thing and I see what he's doing with it.
I see what he's doing.
Grant Morrison is a good writer. I think the problem I can have with Grant Morrison stories, and I might have had with the last one, is Grant Morrison's always throwing out so many ideas in every single one of their stories that if there isn't something just simple to bring it all back, it kind of loses me and it loses impact. I don't have that one with this. I have this simple story of a dad who needs to learn a lesson and Santa Claus is here to help him out. And then you build up from that and you throw in weird tree people and Surtur's here from Ragnarok and you have all this stuff.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, and because when I read it, it was a little overwhelming at first, but then you're like, well, I can just come back to the base level of this, which is just, it's a snowman on an adventure with Santa. And I think that's great. And the lesson's great. And it makes so much sense why it has to be Santa doing this adventure, because most other superheroes from Image, Marvel, whatever, their end game, what's going to get them to win the day is just punching better than other people. But that's not what Santa's about. Santa's about seeing people's, true intentions and being the greatest guy in the room who's going to make everyone happy at the end. And he's even able to do that at the end of this, what could have been a really just depressing story.
Yeah, no, he ended up making it nice and happy.
Yeah.
And you know who makes a lot of things nice and happy for us?
It's certainly not the alcohol that you served me earlier.
Our sponsor, Michael Lopez.
Oh, he makes us happy and nice and stuff. Yeah.
I figure we talked about most of the book already, so we'll talk about our sponsor now. We normally do it at the beginning, but I was going to throw it in the middle here.
Yeah. I love it. Higgins, you're playing with time, and that's big for the story. Maybe we get a little more into that after this message from our sponsor, 008 Studios.
He does a lot of stuff. He does a lot of cool stuff. He helps you write books. He helps you make shorts, some video shorts, some video games, other stuff in the multimedia platform. He doesn't like music because he says he doesn't have the taste, but maybe you could give him the taste.
I think he's holding out on us personally.
Yeah, I think he get there. I just think he needs the right person.
Higgins, when you are involved in the creative world and you're working on so many things for business like purposes and profit for other people and yourself, you kind of lose that passion. So I feel like Michael secretly loves any and all music, but he just wants to keep that to himself. And I think given all the work that he's been doing this year, we'll give him that one thing.
Yeah, we'll give him that one thing. He's been helping us a lot.
That's right.
Until he gives us that sponsorship, he has more things on the line. And Snoop says until he realizes we suck, he's gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
He's got more books on the way. There's a timer. It's coming up soon.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. There, I think, are going to be some books on the way this year-ish, but definitely for sure, there's like 4 to 5 things coming out from a studio next year in January-ish
2024.
2024. It's going to be a big year for 008 Studios.
We're going to have a lot of things to talk about.
That's right.
Obligatorily.
But also we love it.
Of course we love it.
That doesn't always work out that way, but thankfully this time it will, I think. I assume. Now, none of those are going to be directly from Michael. His book is being delayed because he's been working real hard to get these other projects off the ground.
And he's got like 2 kids or something like that.
I mean,
he messed that up.
That we know about, yeah.
He messed that up, but...
I imagine if anything, once they're of age at least, he'll be able to put them to work and speed up production. We'll get 2 books from him that one year, yeah. So be on the lookout for The Eternal Crown, Trials of the Clergy, next year.
I'm looking out for it real hard.
Look real hard, Higgins. Look all around you. Make sure it's not on the shelf already.
It's not.
It's not. Okay.
Look.
Keep an eye out just in case it shows up. Maybe it's in Charlie's cone, just tucked away in there.
Still not.
Nope. God, she's so upset. Get a picture of that. You can put in your promo.
We're gonna do that right now.
Do it right now while the moment's hot.
Oh, she's got the book right on her arm too, which is kind of tight.
That's classy. That's why she was sitting so still. Truly committed to her craft.
She's real cute.
She is. Cutie in a cone. All right. So be on the lookout for all those things. There's timers on the website that you can get to in these podcast description notes if you want, if you'd be so inclined. But if they don't want to click on a link, Higgins, because some people are scared of links, what could they type into their local URL?
Oh, they could type in 0-8studios.com.
Absolutely right. Yes.
And you could look at all that stuff that's happening.
Just watch it come down the pipeline. Be ready for it.
I did it in one take, boys and girls.
Higgins, you're feeling a little sauced. I can tell.
Yeah,
What'd you get in you earlier that tasted so awful?
But okay. Yeah, I do need to tell you guys about the drink. We pretty much told you all about the book. We're not going to do any more about that. I think we're just going to hop into other stuff.
We got other things to say about the book, but go on about the drink.
But the drink is called a snow. All right. I'm gonna have to look. Actually, it's a snowball.
It's a peppermint snowflake.
Miracle peppermint snowflake
shit martini
cocktail.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Did we at least manage to use all the peppermint schnapps from like 40 episodes ago?
No, we hardly touched the peppermint schnapps.
This is the worst Christmas ever.
So it's a very bad drink. It looked very pretty. You'll see pictures of it on my Instagram. You're gonna go for 2 ounces of vanilla vodka, 2 ounces of half and half, and then 1.5 ounces of peppermint schnapps. And you rim the drink with some sugar, and you put a candy cane in there.
Yeah, and definitely do those last 2 pieces because that's the only thing that made that somewhat bearable.
Yeah.
That might be the worst drink I've ever had, period.
The only thing that's been worse is the melon drink from our Godzilla episode, and that's been years. That was in our first 10 episodes, I think.
Yeah, our first of many future Godzilla episodes, I'm sure. Godzilla's back in a big way this week, Higgins. I'll talk about it later, maybe.
I really hate mint in general, so
it just wasn't a good time for you, huh?
Yeah, it just wasn't good.
Got you surprisingly buzzed, though.
Yeah, I drank a few beers too.
You chased that peppermint down with it when I wasn't looking. Well, that's very rude because you didn't offer me any, and I had to drink that whole thing by itself.
I gave you one Blue Moon.
Nothing about it was good. I can't get over how nothing about it was good. Not even the sugar rim. Higgins.
No, this is literally, honestly, guys, this is the one. Everything else has had somewhat of a redeeming quality. You don't have to do this one, guys. You don't have to do this one. You can look at it. You can try it if you want to, but it's a gag gift. From us to you, it's a gag gift.
Yeah, we took one for the team this year. It definitely won't happen again next year. Next year, I'm getting something with like chocolate in it, maybe a hot chocolate martini.
Snoop told me to get some mint in there, and I got mint in there, and it was all mint and liquor.
I knew it was gonna probably not work out, but I saw the peppermint schnapps we did with Josh back in that Umbrella Academy episode, and I'm like, we should probably use some of this just mini bottles of alcohol we've collected over the years.
And we did.
And I was kind of hoping we could at least finish it, but I guess you'll just have to do that one on your own, Higgins. Just make these drinks for you and only you.
I will.
Yeah. Pour some into Charlie's cone if you can. Get her nice and buzzed. And she's really, really cuddling up with that copy of Santa Claus. So I mean, some of those things we just talked about are good. Michael's business. Some are really bad. That drink was really bad. But if you want to see a picture of us not enjoying it, Higgins will post that on Instagram.
Oh, I have that.
Yeah, that's right. Got it. You're also going to post that picture of Charlie looking real cute.
I know, she's in there too.
Do that picture first. Imagine the algorithm's going to like a picture of a dog in a cone. Yeah. I want to talk about a couple more things with the book, and then we can move into that last segment, though, if you're ready.
I don't know what segment you're talking about.
Okay. Well, think about it while we're talking about the book, and if anything comes to mind, Higgins, and you just feel the need to shout it out in the middle of me talking,
that sounds like a crazy thing that you're saying right now.
It's a bit of a change up for us, but I think it could work. Yeah. So just think about it.
Dan Mora does the best art that I've seen in a comic book anytime we've read anything.
And that's why I want to spend a little bit of time on the follow-up story, which is the life and times of Joe Christmas, because that's all that it is. It's just art.
And I'm going to do a little pee before we do
He's going
that.
to take a little podcast break.
Because my pee is in me.
He can't hold any more pee. It's because he had all those blue moons and that nasty peppermint.
Well, now we're here.
We are here. We're here to talk about Joe
I
Christmas.
got my headphones in.
You feeling good about those new headphones, Higgins?
Yeah, they're sounding good.
Super crisp?
Super crisp.
Loving it. Did you love this second story, though?
It was fine. It was like a calendar.
I know you're still upset because you had to hold it
It
sideways.
was like you're in your older days and you're holding up a Playboy, seeing the middle screen, but it's every single page.
It's not a full body shot of anyone in this anyway. What's the point?
I know.
There's a full frontal shot of this big giant cat with an eye patch, though.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty cool. I like this, not as much, I'm sure.
I wish we could have gotten like a full story of them, or at least like a little bit of a story of them.
I think that's the only thing I don't really like about this series continuing. I mean, I'm more than happy for them to just do it whenever they want, but you can definitely tell that this volume and the last one were, we've got a couple stories here and there we want to get into. And because they come so few and far between, when
They get rushed almost.
I don't even know if it's that. I think that they're given pretty much free reign. Oh, we didn't even talk about who makes this book, Higgins.
Oh, it's boom.
That's right. It is. It's Boom Studios. But I think that they give Grant Morrison and Dan Moyer pretty much free reign to do this whenever and however long they want, because it does sell really well and people really like it. I think by spacing it out, getting a story here and there, and then the second story to be, oh, it's an advent calendar. While that's a really good idea, I mean, it's still a Christmas thing. That's a thing that happens every year.
Yeah,
But
we get to see a lot of cool stuff, but we don't know what any of it means.
I think the best thing I can say about as far as the writing and the storytelling of it is how they lay it out. Because you go through each page is just full cover art, and there's nothing to complain about on any of those pages. The art is amazing.
We see the Beatles at one point.
Yeah, he helps the Beatles. It covers the story of Joe Christmas. I don't really know anything about Joe Christmas.
He shows up in the first story we talked about. Barely.
Well, in this version of Santa Claus lore, he's kind of supposed to be his plucky sidekick from old adventures back in the day. We've heard in the last volume and in this one, there's a couple lines in the first story where, oh, you were here during the Lunar War with the Moonshins or whatever. Like, we get those little snippets and lines of
the
past
Moonshins.
adventures.
I forgot about those
So
guys.
I think that this was meant to be, well, we've been mentioning a lot of crazy Silver Age, Golden Age comic-esque adventures with Santa, and we don't have full stories to really cover that, or we don't want to. So here's some just beautiful art by a man who has an insane imagination, and that's the idea of it. And I like how it's
They
told
literally
here.
gave us like the cover art for like
An issue.
20 issues,
25
basically.
issues.
Yeah.
25 Days of Christmas, yeah. And they could have just done it, random adventures here and there, but they wanted to base it around this guy who was Santa's sidekick, and every page is a different day of December, but at a different time in that guy's life.
It's
And
like slowly declining to his like birth, basically.
to do it consciously where we start December 1st is on the back end of Joe Christmas's life, and now he's just a guy playing Santa in a mall. And then as you go page to page, you see the insane stuff he used to do. Like, he went to the moon with Santa. He fought in an intergalactic Christmas war. There's these Scrooge-esque corporate men that they're fighting in a toy factory. It even tells a story about how Joe Christmas met his wife, and also how he lost his wife and what he did after, and how Santa picked him back up after that
And
huge
there's
loss.
even like a whole animal episode where we get Lily and all the crazy characters they got. There's a rooster with a guitar.
Yeah. And I think that's a really fun idea. And also kind of, I imagine that Grant Morrison, the way that this probably worked is they wrote the story, or at least they wrote down the ideas and sent it over to Dan Moira, who then took it and made it into his own thing. But you could technically say that this story from beginning to end is written by Dan Moira, because it's just his art. All we have to go off of is what we see in the pictures. And one thing that I can definitely commend this for is it tells a story beginning to end that I can understand and that anyone can understand
You just
without
almost
having
have
to
to-
read a single word.
You almost just have to like look at it backwards if you really want to see it like the way it's supposed to be told.
And that's the thing is, it could be told that way. You could just start from the back of the book and flip forward until you get to the end, and it works really well like that. But that isn't as interesting, I don't think, as, again, showing him at the end of his life and he's so happy, and he's also doing this normal, mundane thing that we have people do in our world. Like, we have Santa Claus people at the mall. But then you go backwards and you see, oh my God, like, look at all this stuff that this guy's done. And then it keeps going where you see even how Santa Claus seems to have gotten involved with this normal looking guy.
You see him like even in his like crib and like his orphan shelter and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then I think the only page I honestly want to just hear them talk more about in an interview, or maybe there's like a Q&A section somewhere where they kind of go over it, is that last page is very, very weird and could mean a lot of different things. It's just Santa's at an orphanage or a church doorstep with what is, I'm
dropping him
assuming,
off.
Joe Christmas either dropping him off or potentially picking him up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and so is that Santa's kid that he had to leave behind for some reason? What's going on there? I don't know. And that again is something that works really well with Grant Morrison's storytelling. Is there's just so much to everything that's in a panel or on a page. Every line in that first story and every picture in this just makes you go, I want to see more of this.
He's basically left a lot of himself to like make more issues of this, basically.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying is I think that for them at this point, for Grant Morrison and Dan Moira, this is just a thing that they will continue to do if they're really inspired to and have an idea they think is worth doing. I like that element of it because even though I didn't love the last volume, it was still a really good comic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then they come back to this one and it's stronger than that. And I think that's just because they took the time to go, oh, what if we tackled this angle? Or what if we told a story that covers this kind of characteristic of Santa? So I hope to get another one. But at the same time, I think another part of Santa is he was here before us and he'll probably be here after us. It's just an idea that's gotten so big. And that's kind of how you can look at this particular version of Santa as well, as he could have more adventures, even if not written by Grant Morrison, by another person if they decide to sell off the rights or whatever. But also this could just be it. And that's also really great because what a solid run.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. I think all that we really need to do at that point, unless you have anything else to add, is just give it a review one more time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
God dang. I don't know what the 12 things of Christmas are, but I want to just, I'm just going to give this one a lot of birds. That's what my rating's going to be, a lot of birds.
Like the finger? Like the rude finger? You hated it that much?
No. Just a lot of birds, like some gooses and some ducks and some partridges in a pear tree.
Or in some other kind of fruit themed tree.
Yeah, I'm just going to give them a lot of birds.
Your dog is losing it in that cone right now.
Yeah, I know.
Charlie, chill. It'll come off one day. But when? So what does that equate to, all those birds?
Like an 8.7.
That's solid. It's a solid year of Christmasing. Love that.
She made it.
She's going to the couch now. Your pets are getting more and more rowdy during this podcast.
I know.
We're going to have to sit them down. And here comes New Cat. Goodness. All right. Well, Higgins, I agree with that rating wholeheartedly, and I support it. I don't support
what would you like to like say it is though for you?
I want to get this cat off my mic. Get out of here. Get out of here, you adorable monster. There we go. All right, so the cat's off the mic, which means that I can take all my remaining brain power that hasn't been burned away by mint and sugar and say that I'm gonna send about 12 carolers to your house this Christmas, Higgins.
Oh, thank goodness.
So they can sing the praises of what is Santa Claus, more sexy Santa Claus, the life and times of Mr. Claus.
Banana, rings for squares.
That's the thing that you normally do. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad
I try to find a way to just like block the words you're saying without being an ass.
Keep trying.
And I just did that.
Yeah. Keep trying. You'll get there one day. But no, Higgins, it's that time of year once again, and time of the month where you and I talk about things that aren't books and the dog shakes. So
yeah.
The dog's done that. now we can talk about things. What do you want to talk about this month?
I could talk about a few things.
Pick one thing.
I think the thing I want to talk about the most is the Sandman on Netflix. It's been out for a long time. I think probably a year or more.
But we've never talked about it on
But
here.
we never talked about it on here. I just watched it. I was sick. The change in the weather
Gets
really
to you.
knocked me out.
Yeah.
And I had a whole weekend to just sit and cough and sneeze and watch Netflix. So I watched The Sandman.
Mhm.
It's their like version of the comic by Neil Gaiman, which we'll eventually read.
Well, we've read it already, but you're saying we'll read
We've
and
all
talk
read
about
it, but we'll read and talk about it
That was the first comic that you and I started talking about just on our own.
before we even really started this one. Before we started even our first one that we quit.
Before we could spell microphone, yeah.
Yeah. It was very good. They really nailed it. I really thought they were to like really shit the bed on that one. Netflix really does that a lot of the time, but it hit all the points.
Yeah.
All of the episodes they hit really did hit,
And they hit hard.
and they hit hard.
Yeah. How much sand did you have in you after you watched all 10 or 12 episodes?
There was a lot of sand.
Yeah. Is that why you keep moving around this episode? Just
Yeah.
got some
So
in
I'm
your cracks and
going over
crevices?
here.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I've seen the first episode and it was really good. And I think the only reason it's probably as good as it is because Neil Gaiman was very heavily involved
He's
with
a
making
part of
that.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I first saw the guy, I wasn't convinced that he was going to be a good like Morpheus,
Mhm.
and he nailed it over time. He was a little too skinny at first, what I thought, but like he's got the right voice, and like you never really feel like he's not the guy that was the right man for the job, because like that's such a beloved comic for anybody that reads comics,
Yeah.
and I think they really nailed like the whole image of it.
Yes. So Neil Gaiman keeps talking about a second season. It's probably going to, I think the way the deal worked when he gave it to Netflix
They kind of
they don't have to.
they don't have to, but they kind of have
Well,
to.
so basically, I think how he worked it out, because Neil Gaiman's done a few different adaptations of his work. So I think going into this one, it being what it is, like this is probably the first Neil Gaiman story that I ever read. And I think for a lot of people, it's their favorite. So it's a very important one to get right if you're going to try and adapt it. So the deal, as far as I understand it, is Netflix doesn't have to make another season, but if they choose not to, he's allowed to shop it elsewhere.
Well,
I
that's
think,
good.
So I definitely think a second season will happen. I think that Netflix will do it. It's just tough with them if they don't announce after the first week of it coming out, if it, we're doing another one, because that's typically what they'll do. And if they don't, it just kind of sits there.
Yeah.
But I think we'll at least get one more.
It has been out for a while, and I'm late to the party.
Well, I mean, I haven't even finished it, so
Yeah.
you're further than me. How far in that would you say issue-wise they covered? Because there's like 75 in that story that they have to get through.
They cover a good chunk in the first season. It's probably like I'd give them the first like 60 to 70% in the first season.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah, so they're
Oh, okay.
knocking a lot of it out.
Okay.
He gets all of his stuff back.
Mm.
He does a good fight with like all the other people. There's a few things that Netflix takes a few liberties with.
I see.
But like for the most part, they jump through the main crux of the story pretty quick. And the part that I really liked is in the Sandman comic, they have a lot of like one-offs where they like follow like a different character or a different like storyline.
Mhm.
Like a whole issue is like them doing this one thing, and they do follow that pattern in the show.
They'll do like a side story or
They
whatever.
do
Yeah.
a whole episode that's just a side story, and they do like a pretty good job of all that. There's an episode where a guy has the power to like control everybody, and he in a diner in the comic, and he does that pretty well. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's not the best copy of it, but they do the best they can, like in a show format, I guess.
You're saying there's not as many weird orgies
There's
as
just
there are
not,
in that
yeah,
comic.
yeah. There's just not as many like people involved.
When you
And then,
when you texted me when you were watching that episode, that's all I wanted to know is how weird is that restaurant orgy?
And then like Hobbs Gadling It's like a man that doesn't age, basically.
Mm.
And they did a whole episode involved with him, not connected to anything that's already happened.
Okay.
And that's honestly probably my favorite episode that they did in that first season.
Oh, okay, yeah. I really like, and I think that's why people, not a lot of people talked about it, but I think the people that gave it a chance all really enjoyed it. I think part of the reason why the character of Dream, Morpheus, works so well is they did get a guy who was, is this guy going to be any good? Like, not getting like...
They didn't get a big name, thankfully.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely the right call, and I'm pretty sure that Neil Gaiman pushed for that guy when they started casting that role.
He's tall, skinny, and has a deep voice.
Well, and also,
which is good.
You think about the character of Morpheus in the comics, like art-wise, I don't remember who did the art on that, but it's almost like this faceless figure in a lot of ways where he doesn't look like anyone or anything, and that's kind of off-putting about him. For that to be the main character that you're rooting for, that's a tough role to cast, and that's definitely, like, I'm not saying this guy's like hideous to look at or whatever. He's actually quite handsome. Saw his jawline. I'm like, he's working. He's probably doing that thing where you chew gum 20 times in a row and spit it out or whatever. But he's just a guy, and I think that works really well for the character, and also to make this world more surreal. Like if I'm watching something and I'm just going like, oh, that's Chris Evans on screen again or whatever. It's not as enjoyable as it could be for the story that they're wanting to tell. So I hope they get another season, and hopefully soonish. I need to go and finish it, but I definitely liked what I saw.
Yeah, you should watch it.
I should. But
You got
I can't.
anything that you have been dipping into?
I checked out one thing that I actually found really, really enjoyable, and I didn't have many expectations going in. I saw Godzilla -1.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so...
Where did you see that at? Because I really wanted to watch
The
it.
theater down the street.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was very
At
confused.
Griffin?
Yeah, with our friend Andy. It's that time.
Man.
The time where we shout him out. We also had another friend come and watch it with us last second. Zach Fritchie was there. Never
Fritchie.
mentioned him on the show, but he was there. He
I
got
hope he listens.
I don't think he does, but I'll tell him next time I go to the gym and he's there. Tell him that he got mentioned on the podcast, which is the highest honor that anyone can receive, as we all know. So we all sat us, and when I say we all, I mean it was literally just the three of us in that one theater, but which was lovely. So I think the last time that Toho did a version of Godzilla, it was Shin Godzilla back in like 2016. Mm-hmm. This is not that version. I think, as far as I understand it, this is a new Godzilla for that universe, like a reboot.
Can I interest you in like trying to get a soundbite of Andy saying like how many thumbs he gives it? Just be like,
oh, get Andy's review.
Yeah, it's like, hey Andy, can you give us a thumbs?
I mean,
and then just say how many thumbs you give us.
If you,
and there's like a soundbite of him saying, it's like, yeah, that was like 4.5 thumbs.
I mean, he might give it less or more thumbs. We don't know yet. But yeah, I mean, if you work on that and get it to me, I can definitely have that.
All right.
Hello, Andy here. First time contributor, longtime listener of the podcast. Snoop and Higgins asked me to come on and share some thoughts about Godzilla -1. So I'll share some things I liked, some things I didn't like, and give you a rating. So first of all, I will go ahead and tell you that I do like Godzilla movies more than the average person. It has the big monsters knocking down buildings, screaming, roaring, some fire blast and such. All that's there. Moving on. Usually the worst parts of the Godzilla movies are the humans. Nobody cares about their story. We're just here to watch big monsters fight each other. But I will say actually that this time around, the human stories are actually pretty good. I don't want to get too spoilery, but it follows a veteran of World War II, a Japanese guy dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt. So lots of human emotion to watch on top of all the monster action. And then the last thing that really stood out for me in this movie as a positive is that Godzilla is a villain. In some of the more recent movies, he has been a good monster fighting bad monsters. This time, he is a bad monster. He's the villain. So, fresh perspective. I liked it. So, moving on to some things that I didn't like. And this kind of goes back to that human element of the movie. Sometimes the scenes just come off a bit melodramatic, a bit campy. I think if you just lean into it, though, I think you will have a good time with it. Maybe Snoop and Higgins can recommend a drink for those parts of the movies, and they won't be a weakness anymore. And then the last thing is not even a dislike. It's just really more of a disclaimer. The movie is in Japanese, so unless you can understand Japanese, you will be reading this movie in subtitles. But I wouldn't let that stop you. Like I said, I did like watching this movie. And so for my rating, I'm going to give it 4 Godzilla roars. Out of 5.
I think that's it.
That's it.
I
Short
don't
episode.
know. I really don't know what.
You don't know anything.
I don't really know what comic we're gonna do next.
We talked about it.
Are we gonna do our with our boys?
We're gonna do some comics with the boys, I think. Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're gonna do next.
Yeah.
All right. So we got emails. Did we talk about the emails?
We talked about the email last time, yeah. But
With
we can go
with
over
the
it very
boys?
quickly. With the boys, Higgins, yes.
All right. So we have had some brothers that have been fighting with us for the past
With
few
each other.
episodes.
They've been fighting with each other,
but
through
for
us.
through us for our past few episodes. if they are willing, even if some of them are willing, we are gonna read the comic that Zach suggested a few
In the last
episode. Yeah,
You could do this,
And
Higgins.
it's,
I believe in you.
it's called the Star Wars.
Yes.
I guess George Lucas did it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's basically the unused script ideas and some of the stuff in the original movie, but put into a comic form. Yeah.
But we're gonna get them on, and hopefully it'll be really cool.
Hopefully. And if
Hopefully
not,
they don't fight too much
no. I mean, we'll give them the appropriate amount of time to fight.
to duke it out, and
Yeah.
then we'll find the real true winner of the brothers
Yeah. Could be
as the biggest fan
of the show.
of the show
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got you. Could be
because they
Zach.
both listen to it a lot.
They do. They email us a lot. We enjoy all those things. Yes. So we're going to get Zach and Ethan if they're available to talk about the Star Wars. And if not, if they can't do it next month, we'll pivot and do a different book. We don't know what that is, but hopefully that's not what happens. And they'll be on that episode.
If they pivot, we're gonna do Bird King
Okay, we'll do that.
by somebody.
Don't worry about it. I
All
mean,
right.
worry about it if we need to do it. But for right
Yeah.
now, don't worry about it.
It's called
Instead,
Bird King Volume 1.
are you saying Burger King?
Bird King.
Is this just a Burger King ad that you want me to read
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
Okay, I could review that. I could review anything, Higgins. You give me anything. I'll look at, what does it say on Charlie's cone?
Burger Junior Whopper.
Covetous. It looks
Yeah.
like a little Pac-Man symbol. Now, I really appreciate the texture that they've thrown in on that cone, but I don't know if I'm really feeling any of the impact. I mean, Charlie is, but
That's the only thing she can see for the past week and a half.
she can kind of make out that bread bowl that they're making in the kitchen. She's really excited about that.
Scooping all that bread
She
out.
is. She's like, what if you put that bread bowl in this cone? All right. So we're going to talk about the Star Wars probably next year. That'll be the first pod of the year. Oh,
First pot of the year.
such a loud cone. But we'll do that. We'll do a different book if we need to. Whatever it is, we'll do a book. We'll be here every month next year. Guarantee it. And we want to say thank you to anyone who listened this year, who continues to listen.
Yeah, we would especially appreciate it if you give us a review on any of the platforms you use. We're on like all of them, but
Every
if
single one.
you can give a rating on most of them, and you can give a review on Apple, I think is the main one that has actual like word reviews.
This is
So
true.
if you could do that on the Apple Podcast app, that would be super stellar.
We'd be super stoked to read that, wouldn't we? On
We
the
would
show.
read it
Yeah.
on the show, and I don't think there's another one right now. I've looked a lot in the past month, and I haven't seen a new one. So
I mean, you tried. That's all I can ask for. Yeah.
you can also email us, like all of the brothers have done, and request a book that we could read. You could say anything. We'll say anything you read until we get too big to do that. And you can do that on the Comixology Club at 0-0-8studios.com.
Wow, you really got that.
I really nailed it
You're
that
very,
time.
You're very drunk, and I'm very surprised. But
I know.
good job.
I looked straight ahead at your eyes, and that's the only thing I could see. And I was like, "That's what I needed to say."
That's all you've needed this
email.
entire time.
Yeah,
You didn't blink at all either. It was a very little unnerving, but I'm glad that I'm glad about the results you got. I appreciate that. So yes, you can email us there. You can tell us things, rate, review the show if you want. We'd really appreciate it. We'll read it out. We don't care. We'd love it, in fact. So again, thank you to anyone who listens. Thank you to anyone who likes it. Thank you to Michael, as always, for sponsoring the show, just helping us keep the podcast lights on. These microphones take so much power. The electric bill is just so high. I'm glad I don't live here anymore, and it's just
I know.
Higgins' responsibility, but also Michael's responsibility because he's a good guy with a good business. So
fat stacks.
Raining for days, all that money. We'll talk more about his projects upcoming and when they're out and when you can get them and when you should get them and when we'll read them and talk about them, all that stuff. I think it'll be a big year for us in 2024 to talk about some 008 Studios projects. Getting so big. So again, we'll see you next month. Thank you to all, and to all a good Christmas with Santa Claus. And cheers, guys. That's what I say. But Higgins will say something now.
I will get my egg in me, and I just can't wait to see you guys ho 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 in the next year.
Higgins, don't get that egg in you. Get that eggnog in you.